On this episode of Nerdy Romantics Podcast, we will continue our review of the movie The Fantastic Four: First Steps. We're going to talk about villains, we're talking post credits and mid credit scenes. We're talking Sue Storm as Mama Bear, and what in the world is the kid really about anyway? And we will wrap this one up with a star rating. As with our previous episode, and with most of the episodes that I do, I'm going to give a spoiler alert for this one because we will spoil Fantastic Four: First Steps. So, spoiler alert! Stay tuned for our discussion. This is the Nerdy Romantics Podcast, and I'm your host, Y.M. Nelson.
And I did also really like how they use 60s pop culture to tell the story and by doing things like that and looking at, I think it was fun to see like what neighborhood life was like then versus now, and how news was disseminated then versus now. So I think I liked the way they used pop culture to tell this story.
Yeah, exactly. And everybody gathering around the TV kind of
Right.
thing, and then everybody being in the
Mhm.
the audience, and that's how they get things. And then when they're in Times Square, everybody,
Right, and everybody seeing the
whatever,
same newscast at the same
seeing the
time
same
and
thing.
knowing you only gonna
Exactly.
see it that one time.
Right. Exactly.
And everything has to happen at the exact same time. Yeah, I enjoyed how they let it pace the story.
Yeah. I like how they let it pace the story. And two, this is a side point because I'm thinking about the contrast of the tense feeling that I felt when I was watching James Gunn's Superman. And in that, it's very much today, like how the news is disseminated today. And there's social media bots, and there's hashtags, and there's all this other kind of stuff going on. People getting the wrong information and using information to sow fear and all of this kind of stuff, and you get a total opposite. You realize, wow, in the 60s this was not like it is now. And you get like a totally different feeling, and it's actually kind of, I don't want to say calming, but calming is the only thing I can think of to say.
It was refreshing. It was. Yeah.
Yes, refreshing.
Yeah.
It's very much refreshing to kind of like go back to that time where news wasn't a commodity like that. It was a way to get information and to stay current with what's going on, and that's it. But one thing that they brought in as far as conflict is the people having a certain feeling about the kid, being sacrificed to Galactus. Like, what did y'all think about that whole plot line? Y'all are famous, so y'all should sacrifice y'all's kids. And why don't y'all do it for us? Because y'all are the ones that are up here trying to save the world or whatever. What did y'all think about that? Perry,
I
your
mean,
mic was open.
yeah. So first off, I'd say that Reed, what were you thinking, man? I mean, you come.
Right.
I mean, every time I watch this movie, and like I said, I've seen it a few times now. Every time I watch him go up to that microphone and him saying, "We tried to negotiate. Galactus wanted too high a price," and then the reporter asks him, well, "What did he ask for?" And then Reed's like, "I'm like, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it." Oh, you said it, you
You
said
said
it.
it.
Are you?
Yeah.
Yes.
But and when I talked about this on my show, we kind of reached the conclusion that, well, it does kind of make sense for Reed that he is this guy who doesn't really understand people so well, so he doesn't realize exactly what the reaction is when he's saying that. So I I kind of forgive that a little bit, but still, every time, just like, come on, Reed, how do you think they were going to react?
Right.
I thought it worked though. I thought it made sense for the reveal. I think I would have liked it better. I mean, again, I understand why they did it this way, but I think it would have worked better if they had not told and then it had come out, like it had leaked somehow to the press, and then I thought that would have made for an interesting dynamic as well. But yeah, it makes sense, right? That whole idea of the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few type of thing. So, or the needs of the
Yeah.
one. So that idea, I mean, I do
Very
understand
Star
why.
Trek, by the way, very
Yeah, yeah.
Spock.
Mm-hmm.
And I do understand. So it does make sense why people would be like, this is the math here isn't mathing, right? It's one versus,
Yeah.
Right.
how many, I don't know how many people are on this world since the 1960s, what the population was there, but let's say 5 billion, 4 billion or something like that, right? One versus 4 billion, right? So I understand why people be like, well, that math doesn't, obviously, you're going to sacrifice one person to save billions of people. So I
Right.
understand the reactions, even though it's the old trolley problem, right? Do you intentionally kill one person to save, to save several? Yeah, that math logically makes sense. So I understand why the people would react the way they would, and why the Fantastic Four would refuse that logic, right? That makes
Mm-hmm.
sense too. That's not only, just personally, right? I wouldn't sacrifice my kids for anyone, but also that's the hero idea that no, we're not going to be locked into this binary choice. We're going to find a third option. That's one of the things that, not to get on too much of the soapbox here, but that's what annoyed me about Man of Steel, this idea that the villain poses a binary choice and Superman accepts that binary choice. He doesn't say, no, screw that. I'm going to find a third option.
Right.
That's what heroes are supposed to do. So I really like that aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Marcie.
I agree. And I think they gave it enough time for us as the audience to reckon with that choice ourselves too, right? So I think it was interesting and it was powerful to see the view of Sue and Reed and all that this child meant to them. And
Mm-hmm.
then to see the world and what was happening in it and everything that is happening there. And then to have to wrestle with that choice. Because even as an audience member, I'm sitting there thinking, are they going to give him the baby? Like, what are we going to do? Like,
Right.
and so they gave us enough time in the story to grapple with it. And they didn't just rush it along. And to Perry's point, they didn't just say, it's this or that. And even when faced with that choice, Reed didn't say, and knowing that people would have voted to give up his child, he didn't say, I'm not going to look for that third option. I'm just going to let them suffer. And so I think it was, again, the way they paced the story. But it did. It gave us, I mean, I was sitting there thinking, what are we gonna do? And I mean, I was invested at this point, and talking to my nephew and thinking about what that feels like, and then to see that, and then have Sue be the one to go out and say, "I get it, but also I need you to get this."
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think that it's unfortunate that superhero movies don't get more consideration because that scene was flawless. And I
Yeah.
think as you talk about Vanessa Kirby and her work, I feel like maybe we have a better chance because the Barbie monologue did some good things for us.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's another one of those where that was flawless. Her delivery, the crowd, like that scene deserves
Mm-hmm.
probably more than it's ever going to get in terms of consideration. But it
Yes.
was, I mean, it was Chef's Kiss perfect in terms of everything. And I hope that A, enough people get to see it, but B, that there's an award somewhere, there's a nomination somewhere where someone looks at that scene and says that scene deserves consideration regardless of the genre of the film, because
Right.
the acting and the writing and the filming and the
Mm-hmm.
presentation and the editing and the cut, everything about that scene is what movie making is all about. Like it really pulls you into the story. It really made us all vested in what this alternative is going to be. And it really reminded me of the power of speaking your truth and saying this is my truth and this is where I'm moving with it, and I'm hoping you're moving with me. But yeah, I hope that it gets more consideration than hero movies usually do, because I think that it deserves it. And I'm glad it was there. I'm glad that in the midst of a superhero could have leaned into the Jetsons movie, we still get those nuggets of Marvel, those nuggets of dialogue that we don't forget.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But add on to that, Sinners, they had to move that into drama to be in contention for, I don't know which award, Golden Globe? No, Academy Award. I'm not sure which award, but they moved it in drama for it to be in contention. So yeah, some these genre movies
Mm-hmm.
get slighted so much, and they have such wonderful
Mm-hmm.
acting and editing and cinematography, and they're
Yeah.
making you feel things, and you know
Right.
the pay. But you're right, the pacing of this for the viewer, at first I thought, wow, they're just going to go into this whole thing with her actually having the baby on the spaceship and everything. And it's like, why are we going into this? But we needed that because we needed to wrap our minds around what Galactus just said, is that
Mm-hmm.
I want this kid. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh my gosh. And then, of course, before that point, Reed has been looking for abnormalities with this
Mm-hmm.
kid.
Oh
You
yeah.
know,
Mm-hmm.
he's been looking for something to be wrong with this kid the
Yeah.
whole time before then. So we did need that whole time to wrap our minds around it, because as soon as they get back to Earth, Reed spills the beans. Harry said, "Oh my gosh, why did you say that?" You know what?
Right.
You know what, Perry? I will say this, and this is just my head canon, my feeling on it. Maybe Reed is just that person that believes in saying the truth and the
Mm-hmm.
whole truth. He's just that person. You know,
Yep.
sometimes people with the genius complex, they're just going to say what the truth is,
Yep.
right? Because they just see it as a set of facts. They do not see it as this is going to cause some kind of emotional upheaval. Therefore, I need to distort the facts here. I need to kind of assuage my audience a little bit. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
need to lie a little bit to make this, or
Yep.
I need to defer the truth. He's just going to say the facts of it. And the facts of it is that this thing wants our kid,
Mm-hmm.
and says that he's going to spare the world if we give him the kid. So those are just the facts. I just have this feeling he's one of those rare people that we that we don't see on TV anymore. It's just
I
gonna say the facts.
Yeah, I was thinking that too when Perry was talking. I was like, but I think it's just part of his makeup. He wasn't gonna
Yeah.
lie about it. He was just,
And they kind of ask him point blank too. That's
Mm-hmm.
the other thing. He kind of walked himself into it,
Yep.
unfortunately. But then when they ask him point blank, there's nowhere for him to go
Yep.
but to say what he feels. But Marcie, you're right about Vanessa Kirby's speech. Vanessa Kirby, in the end, when she does
Mm-hmm.
what she does, I
Yep.
mean, it just like her performance is a Academy Award nominated performance here. I
Yep.
mean, Mama Bear is in full effect here, and I'm loving it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
loving everything about it. And you're right. And then too, it's good that you're not a trailer person, because I feel like the trailer kind of spoiled it, because they said that one line about the child and whatever in the trailer. And so I already knew it was going to be a third option in the trailer. They spoiled it in the trailer. But actually seeing her doing this whole speech, that was worth it.
Mm-hmm.
That was worth it. They
But that
messed
is,
it up in the trailer, but that was
yep.
worth it.
That's why I don't watch trailers anymore. I
Yeah.
don't.
I
I
must have
don't
missed
watch.
that
Yeah,
in the
it
trailer.
just
I don't remember them mentioning anything about that in the trailer, so I must have missed that.
Oh yeah, they said that. Well, you know what? It could possibly have been a clip that I saw, like when they do, this is Fantastic Four and it's coming in theaters, blah, blah, some entertainment news. Now that's possible, but that was a clip, unfortunately. So I remember that part, and I remember her saying that, but seeing it in the movie with the whole context of the speech is totally different, and really cool. Really cool. But I totally forgot what else I was gonna say. Oh, I was gonna actually talk about the third option. It kind of, now that they put this out there, that they are not gonna sacrifice their child and they want everybody to work together. I love how everybody worked together.
Yep.
I mean, everybody really worked together. It was like, it wasn't this, political anything going on. Everybody actually worked together, including when they had to call on Mr. Elder,
Mole Man.
the mole man, Harvey.
Stingray for all the Cobra Kai fans.
Right. So yeah, he was hilarious though.
He
But he
was.
was hilarious in Cobra Kai too. He was a little annoying though in Cobra Kai, but he was hilarious here. And we only got to see a little bit of him, but he was so funny. But having them all go underground after they done vilified this man, and Sue was the only person who actually stuck up for this dude, right? And he's a comic villain. Did Sue stick up for him at one point, Perry? Ever?
So I think that was kind of a nod to something that happened a lot in the early comics when like every supervillain the Fantastic Four faced was in love with Sue Storm. So I think that was just kind of like that was a little, so to have her be like the peacemaker there and be the diplomatic one, and him being like, he's like, I don't trust surface worlders, but I trust Sue Storm. I think that was just kind of a nod to that idea of like Sue as the peacemaker of the group, because she's done that with the Silver Surfer. She's done that with Namor. She's done that to an extent with Doctor Doom as well. Like, Doom hates Reed Richards, but he won't let any harm come to Sue or the kids. That's his red line in the sand. Reed, Ben, or Johnny, they can get that's Sue and the kids, right? That's the red line for him.
Oh God. Okay, so that's what it is. Everybody loves Sue. Well, Sue's a bomb. I'm telling you, I like her myself. I mean, she's a bomb right now. But yeah, I thought that was cool that everybody then, got together on this third solution. And then when the third solution starts to come apart in the beginning, nobody's saying, oh, Fantastic Four, they're not doing what they're supposed to do. What? We're in trouble again. We're in trouble again. They're not doing that. Maybe they just don't have time to show what the crowd's doing there, but at the same time, at least we're not seeing that part of people being disgruntled and being underground and disgruntled and all that kind of stuff. So, they're just letting them work it out.
Actually, on the solutions too, they actually pulled a little bit of a surprise for me, because I thought that first plan was going to work, and that was going to be how they end up in the 616 universe. Because what he talks about, how moving the Earth to the other side of the sun, that is the thing in the comics. On the other side of the sun is Counter Earth, and it was created by the High Evolutionary, which we saw that in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, but it was a different galaxy and all that. So I thought they were going to do something like that. Like maybe this is going to be Counter Earth now, and when they're coming through, it's going to be them coming from the other side of the sun. But then when that didn't work, and then they end up, because like people were saying when Thunderbolts came out, they're complaining that, oh, they spoiled Fantastic Four. They didn't. Everybody assumed that meant Galactus was going to destroy the Earth and the Fantastic Four were going to escape and then come into the 616 universe. So I'm glad that they played with expectations too with that.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, wow. Is that really what people were saying? Because I knew that there was something going on there, but as far as Thunderbolt spoiling it or whatever with the little thing at the end. Yeah. Maybe it's because I didn't have all that. I just watched these in the past couple of months. So it's kind of outside of the whole talk. Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah. In the time period after Fantastic Four came out, before Fantastic Four came out, but after Thunderbolts, there were a lot of people on like Reddit and things like that saying that, oh, Thunderbolts spoiled the ending of Fantastic Four. It's like, no, they didn't. So just wait and watch the movie before you pass judgments on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because it's nothing like it. But you're right. I was kind of thinking a little bit of the same thing too. I thought that the plan was going to work, and that's how they were going to get the 616 was, something was going to happen there. I thought that was what was going to happen. But what I also thought too was that the baby was going to destroy Galactus somehow.
Right. I did
Because the
wonder.
baby I thought that the baby was going to do something.
I did too.
The baby did do something, but not what I thought,
Right. And I remember that part from previous versions, but I was thinking that the baby would somehow do more of the saving. But I did enjoy how it
ended up.
Yeah, and especially how it gave Johnny a chance to shine a little bit. So yeah, I did enjoy that. But I thought the baby was going to play more of a role in the destruction of Galactica 2 the whole time.
So the only thing left that I have to talk about is our post credit. I guess this is really kind of the mid credit because there is a post after credits credit that shows the cartoon, the Fantastic Four cartoon, which was kind of cool. And the thing said, God, I thought that was kind of cool. But to Perry's point from earlier, I love all the nods to Jack Kirby here and having the quote from him and showing the 828 from his birthday there and everything. It just gave you a warm feeling inside. Also made me think I've actually gone to, and I haven't really talked about this on the podcast or in my newsletter or anything, but there was a traveling Marvel exhibit that was going around. It was going around in the US, but then I think Charlotte was the last place in the US. This was 2023. Charlotte was the last place in the US that it was, and then it went overseas. So I don't know if they're still going around with the Marvel exhibit, but there was a Marvel exhibit that was going around. It had video, it had interactive things, it had life size that you could take pictures with. Hey, I was just gifted an admission ticket. And I was just taking it for what it was. But there are a couple of things in that exhibit that Fantastic Four made me think of is they have the first Fantastic Four comic. They have the first Fantastic Four comic in that exhibit.
Ooh.
It was 10 cents. And it was released in November 1961. Wow. They have the first Marvel comic in that exhibit, and that actually features the Human Torch. And that was
a different Human Torch, though.
Different Human Torch, okay. But that was in November 1939. So 10 cents. But I thought it was really cool that they had a section because I was kind of concerned with the whole Stan Lee, Jack Kirby kind of thing. I was kind of concerned if they were going to have a Jack Kirby section of that exhibit, and they do. They have a section of where he created a self-portrait, and he's at a desk drawing, and then all of his characters are around him, and they're doing all kinds of crazy whatever things that they do, and his portrayal of the Thing is right there beside his signature in that. But anyway, so it gives me a little bit of whatever at the end there with all the Jack Kirby stuff. But the big thing that we see as MCU fans here is we see Franklin and Dr. Doom. Mm-hmm. What are we thinking? What's going on here? And were we thinking about any of the previous iterations? Probably not, but what did y'all think? Marcie, your mic is open.
I was only by accident. I don't have a lot on this topic.
Okay. So you're just okay.
So
we're waiting for Perry. All right, Perry. What do you think?
In that case, I was gonna let Marcie go first, but all right. I have two theories about Dr. Doom, and I think The two theories are this. One, he is going to be, because we already know Robert Downey Jr. is going to be playing the character in Doomsday and Secret Wars. So
Right.
my two theories are that one, this is going to be a variant of Tony Stark who becomes Doctor Doom. It's not going to be Victor Von Doom. So
Okay.
they played with
Okay.
this dichotomy a few times in the comics. There was a comic book several years back called Superior Iron Man, where Tony's personality was inverted and he became much more selfish, much more self-centered, and basically it was more of a villainous version of Iron Man.
Okay.
There was also another comic a few years ago called Infamous Iron Man, and this was when Doom, after the Secret Wars comic book crossover, he had basically adopted the Iron Man mantle for himself, and he was, kind of like trying to redeem himself to an extent. So what I think is maybe they're going to kind of do like a mix of those, where it's going to be this darker version of Tony Stark who becomes Doom is one theory I have, and that's a popular theory too.
Okay.
The other theory I have is that we're just never going to see Downey take off the mask because Doom in the comics, he's always wearing the mask. If he doesn't have the mask on, his face is hideously scarred anyway, so they never show his face. And I think people have gotten so locked into Downey as Tony Stark that they forget he's actually a very talented actor. And like if you've seen him
Hmm.
in Oppenheimer, I almost didn't recognize him in Oppenheimer.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like he could pull this off where if he's doing like an accent or something and we never see his face, he might literally disappear into the Doctor Doom role. So those are my two theories that either we're never going to see Downey's face and he's just going to play it like it's a completely different character, or it's going to be some Tony Stark variant. I'm not sure which one I'm leaning toward, but those are my two theories about what Doom's going to be.
Okay.
Interesting. Interesting. Because in this little nugget, he is holding the mask,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not seeing it, but Franklin's seeing. And Franklin doesn't seem to be, you know,
Well, I think
Franklin's just like,
I
okay.
yeah,
Right.
but he's also four, right? So, and I
That's
think like
true.
you and I've seen this with
If
my
you
own kids.
don't
Like,
know it's bad
no,
at
exactly. You
4,
don't
then you don't know it's
Right.
know,
bad.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, I was
Yeah.
there. Here's a personal story about like a year ago. My son was up in the middle of the night, and this is when he was about like 2 or 3, right? So he's 3 now. This is probably like right before he turned 3, maybe, or something like that. But he's really fussy and he wouldn't go to sleep. And I think he had a stuffed nose or something. So I put him in the baby carrier and I had him on my back and I was trying to rock him to sleep. And before he woke up, I had been watching Fringe, and Fringe is not the most. And so like I had
Yes.
that's why I had him on my back. So he was, and then I noticed I'm like, oh, he got very quiet. And I look over, and I glanced over I'm like, did he fall asleep? I glanced over my shoulder, and I see him. He's peeking over my shoulder, watching Fringe, and he's
Oh
completely
my
fine. So I'm like, okay, let's turn this off now. So
God.
that I say this to not only as an exhibit of my questionable parenting skills, but also because I don't think Franklin may not necessarily be freaked out. He may be curious about Doom's
Yeah.
scarred face. So that was my theory about that.
Okay. Yeah. And two, yeah. I mean, at this point, it's not like they're saying, "Oh my gosh, this is bad." Yeah.
Right. Also, though, I think because I thought that he had some sort of power, in my
Yes.
mind, I felt like whatever it was, he didn't sense it as a danger
Yes.
to his power. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
if you're not stronger than me, I might not be moved by your presence
Exactly.
in the same way that I would be if I think, you know what I'm saying? So in my mind, I thought, well, whoever this is, he doesn't see them as a threat yet.
Yeah.
Right.
But I
And to
felt
that
like
point,
he would have been able to sense it though. More,
yes.
because he's not a regular 4-year-old, so I felt like he would have.
Yeah, he's reading Darwin and
Yeah.
all.
Well, to that point too, and like I mentioned before, in the comics, Doom, he cares for Franklin and his sister Valeria. He's actually Val's godfather in the comics. So like he has this sympathy. He cares for the kids. And in the Secret Wars comic book that we assume that this upcoming movie is gonna be drawing from, when Doom, recreates the universe, he's basically taking Reed's place, where he has it's Reed, it's Doom. He's married to Sue, and Franklin and Valeria are his kids in this new reality he's created. And one of the reasons that Doom gets his powers to recreate the universe in the Secret Wars comic book is he steals the powers from this uber powerful character called the Beyonder. I don't think we're going to get the Beyonder in this. Instead, I think he's going to get the powers from Franklin. And I think that's
okay.
going, and then maybe he's going to jump over into this universe, and he's going to need something from 616 probably as well. Maybe like the Negabands from the Marvels or something like that. Like he's going to have some reason to get these different artifacts to give him the power he needs to recreate the universe in his image. Is I think, and so that may mean he may not be stealing the powers from Franklin, but maybe he's converting Franklin over to his side or something like that. Maybe there's like maybe there's a Palpatine Vader type of relationship here or something along those lines.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yep. I'm kind of sensing that. Yep. That's a possibility. I just think there's a lot of possibilities going on. Now that you say that, so Doomsday is next, but is Secret Wars right after that, or are there going to be some movies in between that? Do we know?
I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, I think Spider-Man Brand New Day comes after Doomsday, but I'm not 100% certain about that. But it may be, we don't know exactly what that's going to be. It may be like a Captain Marvel situation where it's set in the past. It may be like a Ant-Man and the Wasp situation where it's set like kind of concurrently with Infinity War, and then the ending of the post-credit scene of Ant-Man and the Wasp was the Infinity War blip. So we're not really sure I'm not sure exactly what the release date. I'm double checking the release date down.
It looks like the order is different. Brand New Day is July 2026 and Doomsday is December. So it looks like Brand New Day is coming first. And then somewhere in the middle, we're also going to get, and this is projected, Wonder Man.
They've been showing
Wonder Man is a
that's
Disney
a TV
Plus show.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm saying those are, I'm sure somehow
but I'm pretty sure
that
that's
connect in a way that we don't ever see.
Oh, you think
well, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like everything,
yeah.
You talk about all the time, and Stacey is forever saying it was from this show or that show, or this show is where she found it. And I don't watch the shows, and that's why I know the least. But I will say that, the two big movies of 26 are Brand New Day in July and Avengers Doomsday in December. But there are a couple of other smaller projects also in the lineup.
Yeah, so I think Wonder Man will probably be set before Doomsday then, and X-Men 97 is its own thing anyway. It's not in the MCU.
Yeah, it's not in. Yeah, I was gonna say X-Men 97 is its own thing. Miles Morales, Spider-Man is its own thing, right? And whenever that's supposed to come out. And I wasn't sure about Wonder Man, if it was its own thing or not, because as I was watching Fantastic Four, they were showing advertisements for it. Like it was coming up, right? Or it was already on or something.
They're having Ben Kingsley is reprising his role from Iron Man 3 and Shang-Chi. So it looks like it will be set in the MCU proper.
Yeah. Yeah, which I'm like, okay, so we get Shang-Chi. Okay, so with that being said, shout out to Herbie. I love Herbie here. Not a lot to say about Herbie, but I love Herbie. And
Herbie in the apron, cooking dinner, adorable.
Right, cooking dinner. No, not only cooking dinner. Got Herbie carving a pumpkin. He was really carving that pumpkin. And it was awful how he was going and he was baby proofing everything. And then Ben was coming right after him, like breaking everything.
Yeah.
And I just keep thinking, I was like, if Samuel L. Jackson did that character, it would be a totally different movie.
Right. Yeah.
I thought that about Superman too. Oh gosh. But we say all this to say, hey, we got to give this one a rating, y'all. So let's give this one a star rating. To remind everybody what our star ratings are taken from the Goodreads star ratings, as this is supposed to be a book podcast. But hey, Fantastic Four was and still is a comic book series. So there we go. So the star ratings are 1 star. We did not like it. 2 stars. it was okay. 3 stars, we liked it. 4 stars, we really liked it. And 5 stars, it was amazing. And y'all can rate in between those as well. So, Marcie, you're on my screen. What was your rating for the Fantastic Four?
I would go with a 4.75.
All right.
If there had
And
been more Ben romance, it would have been a 5.
okay. All right. Got it. Got it. And so that's your reasoning for the rating or anything else that we didn't mention?
No, I mean, it was a great story. We were able to be fully immersed in the story. The acting was great. The ensemble cast was fantastic. I like the videography. I like the imagery. I like the nostalgia of it. But my nephew, who doesn't know anything about the 60s or the 70s or the 80s, also had a great time watching it. And anytime it can span a generation, and my mom got to be nostalgic to when she was that age. So anytime my whole family can enjoy it, it automatically bumps it up. But just for me and my own personal viewing, I really enjoyed it. And I was glad that I had seen it in the theater and that I didn't let my fear of what it was going to be keep me from seeing what it really was.
Yeah. Yeah. Perry, what about you? What's your rating?
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Marcie. 4.75 definitely sounds like the rating it deserves. I mean, I guess it's fitting that it took us 4 different tries of rebooting the Fantastic Four to finally get it right, but they did it.
Right.
They finally did it. And I say that someone who is actually not a big fan of the Fantastic Four in the comics. It's one of my Marvel blind spots. It's still most of the Fantastic Four comics. There have been a few runs I've enjoyed that I've dug, but overall I'm not as big into the Fantastic Four as I am with like the Avengers or X-Men or anything like that. So but yeah, I loved it. I thought they did a really great job of capturing the family dynamics. They really kind of zeroed in on that aspect. They leaned into the wacky sci-fi stuff. I mean, one of the things I that annoyed me when I talked about Rise of the Silver Surfers, there's a scene there when Sue comes into Reed's lab and she tells him, "Oh, the city is trying to bill us for this armored car robbery because of the damage we caused." And I'm just like, no, that's not what the Fantastic Four are supposed to be about. They're not typical crime fighters. They're adventurers, they're explorers, they're scientists. I think like this movie
Mm-hmm.
finally captured that aspect of
Yep.
the characters, right? They're this team of yeah, they save the world. Yes, they stop supervillains, but it's not their primary thing that they do, right? It's
Right.
the primary thing they do is they are explorers, they're scientists. That's what their primary purpose is. So I think that this movie really leaned into that aspect of it, and I'm really glad for that. And again, I wasn't sold on the 60s aspect going into it, but they they did it. They completely nailed that aspect. They it yeah, definitely 4.75. Gotta agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to say the same rating as well, 4.75.
Wow.
Yes, I did want a little more of Ben, like Ben's personal side, like Marcie. And also, like Perry, I wasn't sure about the 60s aspect going in, but I loved it. I will say this too is that Fantastic Four is also one of those superhero groups that I don't know a lot about, and I didn't even know that they had an animated show until
They've had a few
because
actually.
yeah, see, didn't even know that. They just weren't a group that was on my radar. I would say the extent of my interaction with Fantastic Four is basically the movies. And
Mhm.
I did not see the Michael B. Jordan movie.
You're
So,
better off.
yeah.
I
Michael
mean,
B.
Thank you
Jordan
for
was, I
that.
will say, Michael B. Jordan was great in it, but the movie was garbage.
it wasn't great. It wasn't.
Oh, okay. So that's what it was. Okay, so the movie itself wasn't great. Yeah.
It wasn't
Okay,
great.
okay. But yeah, for some reason I just wasn't excited for this one and I because well not for some reason because of that experience with the other Fantastic Four movies, I wasn't excited for this one.
Mm-hmm.
But I was totally wrong about that. right? I should have been excited because this was a really good movie.
It was.
This was done really well. The pacing was great. The story was great. We got this big, ugly villain that's all over the place and eating up worlds and stuff. So, I get my spacey Star Trek sci-fi feel. I get my superhero feel. I get my funny family feel with this dynamic. It just works. It just works.
I agree.
And so 4.75 all around for this one. Y'all, thank you so much for coming on with me and talking with me about this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Want to get show notes from this and future episodes in your inbox? Then subscribe to Nerdy Romantics newsletter at nerdyromanticspodcast.com/subscribe. Nerdy Romantics newsletter not only has show notes, but nerdy and romantic recs and sneak peeks and exclusives of my spicy nerdy romances and love stories. I love talking sci-fi, superheroes, fantasy, and romance books, movies, and shows with my friends. So share this podcast with your nerdy romantic friends. Thanks for listening and for watching.